Hello friends, my name's Real Emile and welcome back to Forza Horizon 2. Now, today we are going to be continuing the Super Hot Hatch Championship, and my vehicle of choice is going to be the Ford Focus RS, and we might switch to a Mercedes-Benz A45 AMG later on, depending on if I feel like it or not. So, let us go and do... We'll go do the circuit race, high-speed circuit, because that pretty much sums up this car, and it sums up what I want to speak about today. And that is the maddest hot hatches around, and indeed this Ford Focus RS is one of them. And it's exactly why I love this car. Now, most hot hatches have around 220 brake horsepower. Most of them these days are starting to get towards the 250 being the average. Ford's own Focus ST, which is the normal hot version, has 252 brake horsepower, I believe. Now, the Ford Focus RS was released to be a super duper special edition of that ST version. And this car has 300 horsepower, all going through the front wheels. And that is why I love this car. That's mental, right? Putting that much power through the front wheels is brave, shall we say. Some may call it stupid. I'm going to go with brave. Now, the reason that much horsepower is usually not advised in a car such as this is because front wheel drive basically means the car's power is going only to the front wheels. Now, if you ask the front wheels to do pretty much all the major components, so steering and handling, 300 horsepower, that's asking an awful lot of them. And that's why most manufacturers wouldn't do it. And that's why most, well, some modern hot hatches actually are starting to opt for the four-wheel drive way of thinking, which we'll speak about in a bit. Now, the fact that they managed to pull it off, and while my driving is absolutely terrible at the moment, I should have really driven something that wasn't recorded first. But basically, the fact they managed to pull that up, and this Ford Focus RS isn't the worst thing in the world to drive. It isn't. You know, well, I mean, what do I know? The last thing I drove on this game was a 1019 horsepower Nissan Juke. You can find the video to that on my channel if you want. But this car is pretty controllable. It's actually usually fairly good. Obviously, you know, there is going to be some understeer. It's a front wheel drive car. Pretty much all front wheel drive cars do suffer with some understeer, even, you know, the lesser powered ones. But thanks to some modern technology, you know, this car's got a very clever front differential, and it also has a couple of other improvements, such as some suspension changes. The car can handle that power, and the fact that it's front wheel drive also means this car is affordable, and this is another reason I love this car. This Ford Focus RS, when it was new, costs £25,000. Okay, so that's about the price of, I don't know, a BMW 320 diesel. I would assume of around, that would be about the same. A BMW 320 diesel cannot go over 155 miles an hour. This can, and it will go over to, I believe this can do 163. Yeah. It also is equipped with pretty much everything you'll need. This thing has voice control, sat-nav, CD changer, all the creature comforts you'd need. Sure, it's probably not as well, what's the word? It's obviously more equipped than the BMW. It might not have the same feel of quality as the BMW, kind of. And it definitely doesn't have the same prestige as the BMW because it comes in this massive, awesome, ASBO-inducing body kit. But it's still absolutely superb. I mean, I think this is actually a pretty decent looking car. So the fact that they managed to do this for £25,000 is insane. And it definitely must have a large fan base, because this car actually used now costs more than it cost when it was brand new. Not many cars tend to do that, especially not in such a short period. This car is still worth around, what, 20 to £30,000 up to 6 years from its release. And that's with about 40,000 miles on it. That is extremely good for this sort of car. And Ford didn't stop there. You see, the Ford Focus RS is quite mental. However, for those of you who've played Forza Horizon, you may know the version that's even more mental than that. And it's called the Ford Focus RS 500. We're not going to switch to the Merc, by the way. I'm going to stick with Ford because I'm actually enjoying speaking about the Ford. Now, the Ford Focus RS 500 basically said, you know, 300 horsepower? What about if we up that a bit to 345? That's an awful lot of power. That's an awful lot to ask of the front wheels. I believe even today that would be the most powerful front wheel drive hot hatch around. Technically the most powerful front wheel drive car is now that Nissan Le Mans car thing that they made, but 345 horsepower through the front wheels is absolutely insane. And the car admittedly didn't control it quite as well as it handled 300, but it still wasn't, you know, entirely undrivable. There was some drivability to it. Now that did cost a bit more than £25,000. I believe it was around 40 for the RS 500. You'll have to don't quote me on that. However, the RS 500 has definitely held its value. That thing is now worth £50,000 plus, and that's just monstrous. Now, of course, because cars are getting heavier and heavier and getting faster and faster and so on and so on, most manufacturers nowadays are switching to the four-wheel drive approach of doing hot hatches. This is indeed what Ford are doing with their next Focus RS, which I was a bit disappointed to learn about. Now, four-wheel drive, you could potentially get as much power as you want out of a four-wheel drive car. I believe Mercedes are pushing about 400 in... is it a Barbus version of the A45 AMG? But four-wheel drive just isn't as fun as front-wheel drive. It also makes the cars more expensive because four-wheel drive systems are more costly. However, I'm pleased to report there is one manufacturer who doesn't think like this, and this is why I'm super duper excited for this car hopefully coming in Forza 6. And that's Honda. Now, Honda, you may recall the Civic Type R. For those of you who've watched my content for a while will know the 97 Honda Civic Type R is possibly my favourite car in the world. And, well, modern Civic Type Rs just haven't really had the same level of excitement for me. The new one, however, has 307 horsepower going through the front wheels, which is rather a lot. That really is rather a lot. However, the Honda Civic Type R, the reason I love it so much is because it just doesn't stop there. You see, while yes, it does have only 7 more horsepower than the Focus, it has a top speed of 173 miles an hour in a Honda Civic. A car which, let's be honest, most people occasionally make fun of for being boring and stuff like that. That is just incredible, and I absolutely hope that car... I can't get this corner right. I absolutely hope that car is in Forza Motorsport 6. I would dearly love to try it, and indeed put it against the four-wheel drive Ford Focus RS to see which one. Ooh, that was so close. We finished dead on the same time. Well, I do take the championship. I was kind of worried for a second there. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the front-wheel drive Honda Civic Type R. However, I get a sad feeling that maybe this is going to be the last of the front-wheel drive hot hatches. So tell me what you think.
That was the last championship of this road trip. If you've got nothing less to do in Castelletto, meet us back at the hub and we'll head back to the festival for the awards party.
So, tell me down below, how do you prefer your hot hatches? Are you a front-wheel drive man like I am, who prefers them cheap, accessible, and a whole lot of fun? Or are you someone who's a bit more sensible and prefers these four-wheel drive systems and cars like the Mercedes A45 AMG and the Audi RS3 Sportback? Because you can push a lot more power with a four-wheel drive car, but it might not be as fun. Tell me down below which one you prefer, and if you are indeed extremely excited to see which car can cut the mustard in Forza 6, whether it'll be the Civic Type R or the Ford Focus RS. Also, another question, which one do you prefer? Do you guys prefer the brand new Honda Civic Type R, or do you prefer the brand new Ford Focus RS? Me personally, I think I prefer the Type R. Anyway friends, I want to thank you very much for watching, and until next time, farewell.